Good evening. Let's call our board meeting to order, and I'll ask the treasurer to call the roll.
President Baker?
Present.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Vice President Cole?
Here.
Ms. Gibbs?
Here.
Ms. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Peretti?
Here.
Ms. Reyes?
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. I would like to call on our Chief Academic Officer, Alicia Gillison, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. What I'd like to do now is just briefly read through our agenda so we know the work we have before us this evening. After the board adopts the agenda, we will take public comment if we have any speakers. We will then hear a presentation from the United Negro College Fund in recognition of Black History Month. We will then hear from our superintendent and internal auditor and treasurer if they have any executive reports to share from us, after which we will take up our consent agenda. The board will then share announcements and points of pride. And at that point, the board will recess into executive session, and of course, no public business or no vote is taken in executive session when the board does recess into executive session. The board will adjourn out of executive session without returning to these chambers at the end of the meeting. So having said that, the chair will now entertain a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Treasurer?
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Ms. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Peretti?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. As I understand it, there are no speakers signed up to speak this evening. All right, very well then. We will move on to our special presentation on the work of the United Negro College Fund, and I will call on Board Member Gibbs.
Thank you, President Baker, members of the board, to our viewing and listening audience. We are very happy today to have Miss Natalie Cole with us. She is the area director for the United Negro College Fund. As you may have known for the past many, many years, a mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in. She stands here before us with as an alum of both the Ohio State University and the Mount Vernon Nazarene University School of Business, where she earned her master's. She is very active in the educational community, the mom of 3 beautiful students, and probably most importantly, and a beautiful wife to Derek, but a huge and a very dedicated and a passionate advocate for young people to attend college and to take advantage of all the opportunities that a college degree will afford them. So without further ado, let's welcome Ms. Natalie Cole.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. President Baker, Vice President Cole, and members of the board, I just want to take this moment, especially today, to thank you all for your tireless public service to our children. We know that public education is a most noble American value, and I just thank you all for the work that you do. UNCF was founded in 1944 by our founder, Dr. Frederick D. Patterson. You may know our founder from the Tuskegee Airmen Program, which he began when he was the president of the then Tuskegee Institute. We are very, very proud of his legacy, and there's no better time to talk about it than during Black History Month. I love that you all are honoring the contribution that African Americans have had, not only to Columbus City Schools, but to our nation at large. We were founded to overcome racism. What most people don't know is that only 12% of young people who are of color will get to and through college. We do not believe, like so many other organizations, that it's enough to get money into the hands of young people, get them into the door of college, and walk away. We know that when young people are left to their own devices with little to no money, that they will leave college with debt, that they will have a burden that they cannot bear on their own. That's a burden that they have put on taxpayers. And so for us at UNCF, it's important that we get kids not only to college, but through college. We really want to move that needle. We know that 12% of African American young people will get to and through college versus 36% of their predominantly white counterparts. So for us, even though we were founded to overcome racial discrimination, Therefore, we will never discriminate against a young person. The only factor that a young person has to prove when they come to seek our services is that they have a financial need. We still know that that data is a problem. We know that America is browning, so to speak, and I'm sure you all know the statistics as well as I do. And what it means is it really puts our country in a precarious position when we have a browning workforce who is uneducated. So UNCF really believes in helping young people get the money that they need to get to and through college. The number one reason that young people leave college is because they have the inability to pay. So we go around not only raising funds, but we like to stand on 3 pillars, that's what we call them. We advocate for young people in the community. We come out to board meetings. We sit with legislators. We sit with community leaders and talk about the disparities and that gap, that achievement gap that exists for our students. We also give students scholarships to help students get to and through college. We know that a $5,000 scholarship will increase the odds of a student's graduation rate from 32% to 86%. So $5,000 a year is a huge difference to the students that we serve. But then we also support historically black colleges and universities, and that's really the reason that we were founded way back in 1944. When the doors were closed to most students of color at predominantly white institutions, historically black colleges and universities really filled in the gap and made education possible for young people who were African American. Some of the greats that have graduated from HBCUs include Dr. Martin Luther King, who we are most proud of course, Alice Walker, Spike Lee, Joyce Beatty, and of course our own Shauna Gibbs. So one of the students who's from Columbus, who received part of the $1.3 million that we give out to students within this community annually, is Christopher Sumlin. He couldn't be here. Ms. Gibbs said, please, please, please bring a student. And I promise you I tried, but luckily they are all studying, and I refuse to pull them out of college for any reason. So Chris has sent us a nice video. He's going to kind of drive the message home, but I just wanted to come and say thank you for your commitment. Thank you for recognizing that Black History Month is most important to our kids. It's important that they see the value of the contributions of our people and that they know that they too can contribute in that way. So thank you for having me, and without further ado, I will move on to our student, Mr. Christopher Sumlin.
Hi, I'm Chris Sumlin, a cinema, television, and emerging media studies major here at Morehouse College and a proud recipient of UNCF scholarships. College life here at Morehouse is very intense. Morehouse College is known for graduating some of the best African American men of all time. Some notable alumni from Morehouse include Benjamin Eliza Mays, Samuel Jackson, and our most illustrious alumni, Martin Luther King Jr. Because Morehouse has such an excellent reputation, it is important that every member of the community here strive for excellence in our own way. One way that I strive for excellence is through my academics. That means I study really, really hard. There are some times where I'll stay up till 11, 12, 1 o'clock in order to study and get my I meet with professors, I work really hard, and most of the time I actually do pretty well. Aside from all the academic rigor, I have fun with my friends. Going to Morehouse affords me the opportunity to meet all kinds of people from all different walks of life. We go to parties together, we dance together, laugh together, and most importantly, eat together.
Hey, King. Hey. Hey. Yes, how are you?
Going to Morehouse has been an amazing experience, but I can honestly say that I cannot wait to graduate in May of 2017. After Morehouse, I plan to become a television producer that creates powerful, impactful, and inspiring television for minority audiences. I have big goals, dreams, and ambitions for myself, which require a lot of support and finances. Due to my plethora of UNCF scholarships, I am able to continue my education here at Morehouse, and I am eternally grateful. Thank you so much, UNCF, because without you, I would not be afforded the amazing experience it is to attend Morehouse College. I will always be indebted to you, and I hope to make you proud. Thank you so much, UNCF. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, but an amazing thing to invest in. Thank you so much, UNCF, for investing in my dreams.
just officially close by thanking Dr. Good for your support of UNCF, as well as Ms. Gillison. I know Tracy and all of the members of the union have been incredibly supportive of our work, so thank you. Have a great night.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes, so thank you again. And if you attended an historically black college, would you wave your hand? Anybody in here went to HBCU? Oh, yeah, awesome. So some of the people around you have attended, and they're not exclusively for African-American students. There are a number of students that attended. I'm proud graduate of Clark Atlanta University, which is a UNCF school as well. So thank you very much, and thank you for your work to ensure that each student in our mission that wants to attend college has that opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, President.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. Are there any questions or comments from board members on the UNCF presentation? If not, anything from Superintendent?
Thank you, President Baker. I think Vice President Cole's being modest. This morning, he and I visited the Junior Achievement Discovery Center in Atlanta, and as we rode to and from the facility from the airport, we passed, of course, Morehouse and Spelman College both, and so it kind of brings it all home. It's interesting how the dots are connected, but thank you so much, Natalie, for being here, and we do support the effort, and we're excited to support the Columbus City School students, and thank you for bringing Chris to us virtually. Had we known, we could have picked him up this morning, taken him with us, brought him back here, so, but he's studying, I'm sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. And next month, we will have some student performances specifically to honor and recognize Black History Month. So we look forward to that. And if there's nothing else on that, we will move on to item 5, which is a notice of public hearing on reemployment of Myra Wright. Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 3309.345, the Columbus Board of Education gives notice that Myra Wright, Director of Human Resources Administration, who will retire from the Columbus City Schools effective June 1st, 2017, is seeking employment with the Columbus City Schools as Director of Human Resources Administration effective June 10th, 2017. The board will hold a public hearing on May 16th, 2017 at 5:30 p.m. in the Assembly Room of the Columbus Education Center, 270 East State Street, Columbus, Ohio, on the issue of Ms. Wright's reemployment. Having said that, I will now call on the superintendent for his report. Mr. Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Baker, Vice President Cole, members of the board. Let me thank the full board for having our partners from the United Negro College Fund here tonight and for your support of the many diverse activities across the district in celebration of Black History Month. Just as an update, I want to thank you as well for helping connect Congresswoman Joyce Beatty's office and Sandra Jackson with several of our schools. 3 of our buildings are set to have Ms. Jackson present her moving 10-minute performance of Rosa's Friend, which brings the civil rights movement into present day. Students at Eastmoor, Indianola, and Scottwood will enjoy a live performance, and then our media team will record one of those performances to share digitally with students all across the district. So we're taking advantage of the technology to avail all students of that wonderful performance. Also at our schools, in our science classrooms, students are learning about Isaac Newton's 3 laws of motion. And it occurs to me that his 3rd law, which says for every action there is a reaction, best sets the stage for tonight's meeting and the motion this board has set forth. Among the items on your agenda tonight are 3 noteworthy actions that I believe deserve additional recognition. And the first is our request to launch Operation Fix It. It says point to the sign. Where's the sign? Oh, there, Operation Fix It. In November, the voters of Columbus took action and approved our bond request to target a variety of deferred maintenance needs across the district. With your vote, we react by starting the first project of our 5-year, $125 million repair program, beginning with repairs to the aging and strained HVAC system at Cassidy Elementary School. And this evening, we'll ask Annette Murad and Alex Trevino to share a little bit about that project with the board and our listeners.
Good evening, President Baker, Vice President Cole, members of the Board of Education, Treasurer Bohoric, Internal Auditor Smith, and Superintendent Dr. Good. We are so excited that we're able to bring you the first piece of legislation that will be funded by Bond Issue 57. As the first Operation Fix-It project, this will take place at Cassidy Elementary School. Cassidy was chosen for one of our first projects because the HVAC systems there, both the heating system and the cooling system, are in need of a significant amount of work. So rather than put money into aging systems, we decided to let this be our first project for HVAC upgrades funded by the new bond issue. Alex Trevino and his staff have worked really hard with the contractor, engineers, and with the manufacturers to find a system that will provide both heating and cooling to the entire school. Cassidy is currently partially air-conditioned, but when this project is done, we'll have air conditioning throughout the entire school. The project will start as soon as it's approved and funded, and orders are done for the materials, and they're ready to go on a second shift work during the school year, and then complete over the summer so that by the time the children return to school next fall, the building will be air-conditioned. I'm going to let Alex tell you a little bit about the technical aspects of the system and how it works to provide both heating and cooling to the building.
Thank you, Annette. So before I talk any more about the technical part, I do want to mention again the Operation Fix-It dashboard. So I think it's an incredibly exciting time for our entire community to be able to see this work in action. So if you go to our homepage, ccsoh.us, you will see a new dashboard. It's in blue. It's the Operation Fix-It. There's not a whole lot there to report just yet, but you'll see there's the first tick mark there, kind of contingent upon your approval tonight, to indicate that we are kicking off this first project, major project at Cassidy Elementary School. And so as we saw this bond issue coming, we started some early planning work looking at Cassidy based on its condition, looking at all the range of systems that were available to us. So we looked at rooftop units as a possible replacement. We looked at a system that's very comparable to what's there right now, which we call a unit ventilator system. And we also looked at a relatively new system in the United States, which is called VRV, variable refrigerant flow, or volume in this case. And just based on the current, the kind of the layout of the building, if you're familiar with Cassidy, it's a little bit of a chopped up kind of building that's been added to over the years, so it's a little bit of a challenge in that way. So, but in challenge comes opportunity, and so this VRV system is a perfect match for this building. It allows us to, rather than moving heated or cooled air or even water through a building like we might typically do, we move refrigerant through the building. And so we're able to do that even in spaces where we don't have much clearance between ceilings and roof structure. And so working with our design team and the manufacturer, we've been able to engineer a very creative solution that meets not only our requirements for the project in terms of comfort, it also meets our budget. And the big upside that Annette shared with you is that where the building's about 50% air conditioned when we're complete and fully operational for the fall of 2017, the building will be 100% air conditioned with a completely electronic controlled system. Indeed. So the other nice thing about this system, it's incredibly energy efficient. It is true heat pumping. So this is a building that has some internal classrooms that don't have any windows, so they don't get ventilation on their own. And so this system will ventilate those classrooms, but it will also be able to take excess heat from those classrooms on a day like today and literally pump it to the outside classrooms where they do need some heating. So incredibly efficient and very creative system, and we're really excited to have the team that put this together. And I'll be happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from board members? Mr. Peretti?
Thank you so much. This is just wonderful news to hear this. I am just really excited about how we'll be able to show the community, you know, this is what we're doing. This is what we asked for, and this is what we're doing, and being able to sort of like a report card for ourselves. What about, how are we going to project to the public sort of the roadmap of what we plan to do? How will that take shape? So now it seems to be, we'll be, you know, as things come up, they'll be going up, we'll be able to check it off. What should we tell the community to expect, I guess, is sort of my question.
Board Member Peretti to President Baker. So that's kind of going to be the next step for us in terms of that dashboard. So here over the next month, we'll have the first couple additional contracts for work that we intend to get executed this year. Right now we have in negotiation a total of 7 HVAC projects. But I haven't answered your question quite just yet. So what we want to start to get to is to be able to tell that story of exactly when the projects will be in sequence. We don't have all that kind of, we don't have that kind of clarity just yet, but as we get this first group of contracts negotiated, which will give us a lot of clarity on what the roof work is going to look like over the next 3 years, and then certainly the HVAC work, we'll start to put together a roadmap so that we can very clearly define that information going forward, because we know we'll need to make sure that we're very careful that we stagger the work around summer school
Absolutely.
and other events that would be disruptive. So,
Because I understand things could change, and even looking a year in
Correct.
advance, something could happen, like the cooler at one of our warehouses at our food services, and we had to make room and fix that adequately. So I do appreciate that effort, and I look forward to seeing that. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, Ms. Gibbs?
Thank you. What an exciting project. Just a quick question. If we repair and upgrade the cooling and heating systems, which is amazing, does that alter where the school falls in the facility master plan in terms of renovation?
Board Member Gibbs to President Baker. I think the answer is it could, but at first blush, I would say in general, no. We were very careful to make sure that we did not put dollars from the bond issue into the worst condition buildings. And while that might sound counterintuitive, it's because we're assuming that we will continue to maintain those buildings the best we can and not invest bond dollars in a building that we intend to take offline as a result of the facility master plan in the short term. So the rest of the buildings all have budget to make significant repairs to their HVAC systems, and I would expect them to stay relatively at the same condition with respect to each other.
So when it's their turn to be rebuilt, because I know Cassidy is on the rebuilt list, will we be able to maintain part of that system and just put it into the new building? Or will we have to totally gut it?
That's a good question. There's certainly the opportunity that we could salvage some of those parts. Certainly some of these, I think it'll be a different answer for every building based on how long it remains in the fleet until we get it replaced. But certainly there are parts, components we could salvage and keep in stock to be able to keep other systems maintained and in operation for a longer period of time.
Board Member Hudson?
you, President Baker, and I think Board Member Gibbs raises a great issue, and Alex, first, thank you very much for this great news, and I think, I think whether it's the lessons learned from our experience last fall, and from the FMP process, and then I think going forward as the Operation Fix-It begins, technology changes, repair options will change, and our city continues to change. And I would just challenge all of us that we'll have to continue to monitor that. So this data is fantastic. And I think as a board, also, we saw, in the fall was, folks are supportive of this, but, I think we have to do a lot more homework in terms of talking to the community and really identifying what they want to support in terms of building new. And so we have a lot of work to do as a board and as a district, and I think let's all put our heads together and figure out how to do that. But this data is fantastic, and I think also continuing to think outside the box with our existing facilities will help in the meantime as we try to make great environments for all of our students.
Very good, thank you. And yes, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to get general clarity, and that is specifically that this is about keeping fidelity with safe, warm, dry facilities first and foremost, yes?
Correct.
Okay. Secondly, that this is about looking at the more operable buildings that we have and providing those resources and opportunities for those facilities specifically. And that moving forward, you will announce some sort of list as to what those priority facilities will be.
Correct.
Okay, wonderful. I thank you.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Ms. Gibbs?
Well, thank you, Board Member Cole. You're going to provide that list prior to beginning the work, or when would the list come of the priority projects?
Board Member Gibbs to President Baker. So again, there are no lists right now. Certainly as we start to work through the first project, right now we're negotiating a contract that will replace HVAC systems at 4 buildings. And so we are kind of actively right now looking at all the remainder of the buildings for condition and making our best assumptions based on current condition, which buildings we should do work at first to be able to reduce our operating and maintenance costs across the district.
I'm sure there's a lot of teachers that would raise their hand and say, I want air conditioning, I'm sure.
Indeed.
Comments from board members? Mrs. Board Member Hudson?
I mean, maybe it's a priority list, but we identified projects during the, as part of the levy effort. So, I mean, I think we've been quite transparent already. It's where does that fall in the timing? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, Board Member Hodgson to President Baker, if I may. So if you go to the dashboard for Operation Fix-It, while you won't see much progress there right now, you will see indicators for every category of work that was committed to for every single building. So yes, it is very clearly delineated which projects will occur at which building, just not the timing.
Right. All right, thank you very much. Yes, sir.
So all of the legacy buildings do have projects associated with them. They were all in the literature to educate the community about the levy. We do prepare lists. There are some projects we have to complete immediately. Remember that we had about 9 roofs that need to be replaced. So, and again, if we don't take care of those immediately, it leads to other issues that, for which we didn't budget. So, and it also, the availability of contractors implicates the order of projects as well. Right now, it's a building market, so there are contractors that are busy, and we have to see availability in order to make certain we can do those projects. You're doing a nice job. I'm really, really excited about Cassidy. I mean, it's one building that, honestly, it would have been right at the top of my list of buildings that deserved an improvement immediately. I'm just thrilled that you found this solution. And I look forward to other solutions we don't even know about yet that maybe even some of our own students help come up with to address these needs. So thank you very, very much. And
Thank
again,
you.
we point to Operation Fix-It on our website, and we'll keep that as updated with the latest, greatest information for everyone. I believe, too, it will reflect the dollars invested in those initiatives once they've been completed. So also tonight, we act on this board's continued push for greater engagement of our community, especially with our parents and families. And at the State of the District, I talked about the first question a student, you ask a student when they come home after class, how was school today? And we want our families to have the tool to know the answer to that question before the child even walks in the door. And we want to put it in the palm of their hands with a major upgrade to our Columbus City Schools mobile app. So with your approval tonight, we will give every parent and family member the ability to securely access reports on their individual students' grades, daily attendance, teacher contact, and missed assignments. And as you can imagine, the students are just thrilled that parents will have this information before they even come home. Best of all, parents can set up personalized alerts. You know how you get those notifications now, that you can get notifications anytime new data is put into the system about your child. And starting in the fall, the free mobile app will be a digital source for all of the different handouts and community flyers. So we heard about United Negro College Fund tonight. A flyer could have been posted digitally and sent to those mobile devices. And so now we won't be wasting a lot of paper that may line the bottom of book bags and not be seen. So next then, with your approval tonight on a handful of items, our district will be set to further react to more students who desire and benefit from supportive care of mentors, adult mentors. We're looking to build the capacity of our nationally recognized mentoring program by enlisting the help of a nationally recognized engagement team. The goal is to grow greater awareness about our mentoring efforts, recruit other leaders in our community to support our work, activating more adults to sign up, align all of those efforts, and ultimately make a measurable difference. We also want to do our work smarter and in greater collaboration with all the nonprofit, public, and private sectors. So on tonight's agenda is the investment of Straight A State Grant that will fund the digital clearinghouse of mentors, also Reading Buddies, and other school partners. Actions and reactions are not limited to our Tuesday night meetings, of course, and tonight I want to take a moment to share a very real reaction to our efforts to build safer climates and more encouraging and supportive cultures in our schools. Our accountability and academic teams recently reviewed new data on expulsions. Through changes in our attitudes, our continued commitment to the positive behavior system and to positive behavior strategies, and also our revamped Options for Success program and other work by our administrators, teachers, and staff, we've seen a significant change in the number of hearings and expulsions compared to last year. So the number of hearings for high school students is down 29%, and it's down 34% when you look at it district-wide. Expulsions in our high schools are down by 25% and have dropped an incredible 38% district-wide. And I really want to take this opportunity to commend all of our employees, and particularly the Columbus Education Association members and the Columbus Administrators Association, all of those individuals at the building and at the district level for their dedicated work and commitment to keeping our students in the schools. Truly, it is the best and safest place for our students to be, and we're very, very proud of those outcomes. On this topic of safety, at the next board meeting on February 21st, Deputy Superintendent Stanford will lead an update on the board's 3 priority safety topics as identified in your safety work sessions over the past several months. The information updates and partnership reports by our safety work teams will be helpful as we look to further address the physical, social, and emotional safety of all of our students and staff. And speaking of that, it should be noted that we are in the middle of National School Counseling Week. And it's when we focus attention on the unique and valuable contributions of our school counselors with our national school system, and especially right here in Columbus City Schools. And so finally, tonight, I would like to set in motion another action to be considered by this board at its next meeting. And this is an action that will impact as many as 900 of our students and their families. It is certainly no secret that enrollment at our Woodward Park Middle School has put a strain on the building, its operations, and its teachers and staff. Additional research and community feedback as part of the board's facilities master plan gave us pause to look for solutions to address an enrollment that stands today at about 900 students. So at the next board meeting, I'll be asking you to take action on a resourceful idea that is already receiving great support from the school and staff and stakeholders, and which I shared with each of you individually, as we propose to move the 6th grade section of Woodward Park to a new location. This would impact roughly 300 students in 5th grade right now at the Woodward Park feeder schools, bringing them together for a special year in a school building all their own. Right now, they're in the modular units at Woodward Park, as you know. Because of the facility master plan work, we know which building is best suited for this potential move, and it is the former Walden Elementary building. It was most recently used by Marburn Academy. It's in the feeder pattern, and it just became vacant, and so we have the opportunity to make some minor adjustments to it and prepare it for occupancy this fall. We will begin sharing this news with parents and have to the board all of the necessary legislation so we can be ready to act and react in time for the start of next school year. The same kinds of building and student strain are also impacting our Columbus Gifted Academy, and I share this with each of you as well. And we know that they're in the Beck Elementary in German Village. Well, this district and this board have dedicated a lot of time and energy and resources to create that model program, one of the only kind in the state, and it sets us apart from a lot of other districts in the nation as well. Now, the school is at risk of becoming a victim of its success, as we know programs can, and so we're forced to accommodate some additional state mandates. I described to you how now when students are tested in the 5th grade, if I'm already at that building and this student here tests as she would at a much higher level than I scored, she could actually bump me out of that seat at that building. We want to plan for permanence. We know that's important for our students. So we would be expanding for that reason, and also because we have a bubble of enrollment at the Columbus Gifted Academy. So for example, you have 4 6th grades feeding into what currently exists as only 1 7th grade section. So that's just an example. I don't even know if it's real or not, but it's that kind of a bubble. And so we have to create those additional spaces. And I can get you the actual data. I just don't have it at my fingertips. But Colleen does, and Colleen is here. Dr. Boyle's here. So by the next meeting, I'll bring forth a plan to provide the needed relief to the Gifted Academy by moving the program. And right now, and I shared with each of you that we're looking at that Everett site as one possibility. Presently, it's the best option for a site that can be quickly and cost efficiently readied in time for the 17-18 school year. But again, we're going to continue to look at that and look at the other options and possibilities and put together a proposal for your consideration. But we're going to need to act on that at that next meeting so that we have time to prepare that new site for occupancy in 17-18. So for every action, there's a reaction, and I appreciate the commitment of this board to giving my team the resources to react in the best interest of our students, our employees, and the community we serve. As I said at the State of the District, education truly is the foundation upon which we build a better world, and our success in Columbus City Schools is building taller, stronger, and more impactful than ever, and I appreciate the opportunity to share that with you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Peretti?
Thank you, Dr. Good, for that update. And I want to talk about, well, more or less, it's more of a comment, I guess. So, I'm very, very pleased with the information and the data and the direction that we've been able to find ourselves in with the work of the facility master plan. And I'm glad that we'll be able to deal with some short and some medium-term issues. But like anything else, constantly changing and constantly have to keep our eye on it. I think this is just another good example of why I think we as a board and an administration need to come together again to reconstitute some sort of process where we're talking about continuing the work of the facility master plan, addressing the high school issues, and looking to the future for our buildings. And I think it's one of those things that we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we have our back against the wall with time. And I think right now is a great time to get started on this process so we can have everyone at the table, so we can talk about all the different things that we may want to do with the district, have appropriate input from the public, and really air this out and have them be at the seat at the table. So I guess it's more of a comment for my board members as well. I think this is a priority that we need to address and look for some sort of apparatus to do this work moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, Mr. Brown.
I just briefly fully agree with Mr. Peretti's comment, and believe that we do need to proceed, and the time is right to look at the rest of the facilities plan. One of the things I think that we need to do at the outset is to take a close look at what we've learned from the process and make some adjustments to the process to make sure that not only our timeline, but the people that we work with and the process itself be thoughtful and be designed to give us, the kind of information that we'll need to adopt a plan ultimately. So thank you.
Both. Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. I also just very quickly want to echo in just a couple of sentences that I think it is time to take this plan to next and embed some systems that can be utilized for years to come on a calendar kind of basis on how we evaluate this process and how we continue to engage. Your leadership and that of Mr. Oldham has created an environment for us to have some real-time information and understanding on what's happening with our facilities, whether it's a roof or whether it's HVAC or whatever it is, a cracked sidewalk. So thank you for that. So I agree absolutely that we embed this. I also want to thank you too for the technology piece. I'm really encouraged by what I'm seeing in terms of an evolutionary movement happening with our technology. From the time that we introduced the mobile app, maybe was it just a year ago? Just a year ago, now we're in the space where even me as a parent, when I do ask my son and daughter, how was school? What do you have for homework? I want to see it. Instead of wasting a lot of time going to Infinite Campus through them, I also have the opportunity to utilize this application. So I thank you so very much for that. I encourage any parent who is watching at this point or any caregiver who's watching at this point or listening to really take the opportunity to download this application and make the best use of it. So thank you for that. Lastly, I want to say this about the Beck School. A personal concern of mine for Beck is that we find a space that is not only sustainable but long run. If we're going to transition a population of students, I think that they should go to a building that they're going to be able to stay in, a building that they'll be able to stay in comfortably. So just moving forward, understanding that that's certainly a major priority for myself with that school.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Are there other questions? Oh, yes, Ms. Gibbs.
Yes, thank you. About the technology in the app, can you talk to us about the security of the app and if that data will be encrypted for use, and how are we making sure we maintain the integrity and the security of all these new systems?
Scott Farter to come up. It's not always that I don't know, it's that I think that the people that are really the initiators of these wonderful tools ought to have the limelight really to speak to them, so.
Thank you, Dr. Good, President Baker, Ms. Gibbs. To answer your question, so the app works in conjunction with Infinite Campus. It pulls information from Infinite Campus. So the way in which a parent or guardian will access that information is they first have to go through Infinite Campus and set up their ID. So all of our parents will be receiving in the mail a way to their activation code. They'll have to go online with that activation code and set up a username and password. It's with that username and password then that they can log on to the app and then log into additionally to get that information that's directly about their student. So it is specific to the parent and guardian and specific to that child.
So that's where they sign for the notifications as well.
Correct, and then that's where the notifications can be set. If a grade changes or a missed assignment, that can all be up to the parent on what notifications they want to receive.
Yeah, I like the record to show while this technology is increasingly amazing for parents, it's very hard for students to hide grade cards now. They just told me to tell you that. It's hard to, stuff it or get away with anything. So kudos to the team. The dog ate the report card, no more. So I really do applaud the access that parents now have and the ability to manage their students' progress in real time. But we always want to make sure we have the integrity of the data. We have some pretty ingenious people who may try to find a way to change that C, but we want to make sure that our systems do protect the integrity. So thank you.
And President Baker, if I can add to that, it's because of working with the accountability team and our IT team that we were able to make sure that those safeguards were in place. That data isn't going anywhere else, nor are we changing any of the data integrity that's in Infinite Campus. So I really appreciate their help on this project. It's really been all three of our teams working together.
Awesome.
Board Member Reyes?
Before you sit down, I know she probably has another question, but so we don't ask you to come back. So when I talk to a lot of our parents, they're still unfamiliar in how to use their apps. Will there be some sort of FAQ or training on how they can update, do all of what you just talked about? I have a lot of, we're dealing with a district that has some families that are limited as far as access to computers. So how easy is it going to be to get onto the phone and do that? And then I have another follow-up question, but that's
Okay.
two questions already.
President Baker, to Board Member Reyes. So part of our work with the app is, yes, I think that's a great idea, and we may try to find ways to help folks better understand how to access that information, whether it's through our website or once you download the app, perhaps have a section that is frequently asked questions on the app, so an additional button. I appreciate that idea, and so that may be something that we look at. What we typically know is that for many families, while they may not have a laptop or desktop computer at home, they do have access to the internet through the phone, which is why we really felt the need to move towards the app to provide greater access to information for our parents and families. I also think one of the great features of the app is the ability to change the language on it. So for our families who for our families who I did. So for our families who may not speak English or may need a different language to better understand how to use the app, that does have that flexibility in it.
What languages are we looking at?
You know what, I don't recall what's available. It's already built into the app now, so if you have the app now, you can change the language that's in it. One of the other great features of the proposal that's before you tonight is to really integrate the app with our auto dial system and also then with our website and our view of social media. So before you is a request that would allow us to, through Blackboard, connect all of those. So a message that's created for the app can also go out through the auto dial system, can also be posted to our website, can then also be shared via Facebook and Twitter. By combining all that, we create once, publish everywhere, that ability to get a message out to our families as quick as possible through as many different channels, but all at the ease of one typing, so that our principals, our district staff are not having to type something here, go over here and type something, then type something over there, where the messages might change. It's getting out through all those channels at once.
As you develop your communication plan on telling parents that this is available, I'm assuming we're not going to do it just with one letter going home, because that is the letter that ends up at the bottom of the backpack. Is there an opportunity to include training sessions during like parent-teacher conferences, or when parents come in to talk to a multitude of reasons why they would come into the schools, and have an opportunity for, and I know it's time-consuming, Dr. Good, but I spend a lot of time in my other work, working with parents and getting them connected because they come in with their mobile systems. So it would be nice if there was opportunities in those areas where we have the parents present to have that availability.
I think those are great ideas. And the information that's being sent home is currently being mailed directly to the homes, to each parent and family member that's listed in Infinite Campus. So we're actually doing a direct mail piece that will go to all of our families with information about how to activate this new ability on the app.
Okay, so, sorry. Will that be in multiple languages, and having a district that has parents and children that move regularly? How do we get to those? We have we talked about our community is a very mobile community. 1 minute, our parents are living on the west side, next minute, our parents are moving on the east side. I just think that this information and what we have is valuable for our parents. I just want to, and I'm sure you don't have to answer today, but just looking at how do we access all those parents and touch points?
It's really a multi-pronged approach. So we do the best we can to get it to
Right.
their last known addresses, but what we learned too, before the winter break, when we wanted families to go online and get the lesson a day for reading intervention, we incented the students. So we actually have reward systems for the students to go home and introduce their parents to that technology, that application. So using that same sort of system, where the students are rewarded for sharing with their parents that this tool exists and here's how you use it, is probably the most reliable way we can reach all the families. So, but again, there are still those that want the hard copy. There are ones that want it digitally. There are ones that want the phone call. So we'll continue to use those three as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Hudson?
Looking up, it looks like there are about over 60 languages available on the app.
Very good, thank you. Thank you. Ms. Gibbs?
Yes, and just a question, and maybe it's for you or for the team. At the high school fair, they had a whole section for parents to sign up for the portal. And I believe this week we have the elementary, middle school fair and the middle school fair. So can you talk a bit about that and if those resources will be available there?
Dr. Klein? Let's just have all the staff line up at the podium, shall we?
Yeah.
It really has been a team effort. So.
Yeah, and speak to the success.
President Baker,
Yeah.
to Board Member Gibbs' question, absolutely. So we are thrilled and honored that Wednesday we will be at the girls' school with our middle school fair, and we will have a whole team. And thanks to Scott and his ideas, we have literally branded the Department of Accountability in that they all have on red shirts that clearly mark Columbus City Schools to be proud in their spirit of success. And each of our team members is there to service our parents. And we will have a full station of computers at the girls' school. And then the following night, Thursday of this week, we'll actually do our elementary school fair, which is even bigger and better with lots of characters and lots of exciting things going on as well. And that will be at the new field house at Columbus Afrocentric. And again, on that night, we'll actually have 42 members in accountability dressed and ready to go because of the number of elementaries that we have. So we're very excited for our school fair. And for those of you that don't know, our school lottery application is all online now. It's very accessible. Our parents are very thrilled that they don't have to go in and hand in an application and wait in line, and that it can all be digitally transmitted. As well, will their lottery places and their letters of acceptance are all online. For those that do not have online capabilities, we offer those not only at central enrollment, but at each and every one of our schools. And we have people that are assigned to help parents if they have any difficulties. And we have had some that have called to ask for help. So that's what we're there for. So thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. Varner. Thank you, Dr. Klein. Mr. Superintendent?
That's all I have, but I did want to honor that there was a suggestion from Board Member Peretti, so just for administration's benefit, kind of understanding next, and I know Ms. Gibbs and I had talked about that at our one-on-one this week relative to facility master plan, so that we're all on the same page and I don't misstep.
That would have been another question, not a comment, but to your suggestion and to our ideas in our one-on-one, we spoke about the facilities master plan and how in-depth that process was, and that to continue that work, it would absolutely be an incredible alignment with the Innovation and Reform Committee and could move as an ad hoc. So we'll continue to work with Dr. Good and to work with Mr. Peretti and look at how what we did could move forward and have some synergy and live somewhere in a process. But Innovation and Reform will look at some of those components, and when the board decides how the F&P process will move forward, then we'll look at some of that work as well.
Okay, thank you. And I'm fairly certain we'll discuss that more at the board's retreat
Yeah.
later this month.
Just a
And I
point of
think,
clarification, since we're at the board.
Mr. Peretti?
Let's just be clear. I mean, we as a board need to decide where this work lies. We haven't done that yet. So to suggest, and maybe your opinion, that it goes to innovation and reform, by no means does that, constitute the conversation of the board on how we're going to have a very fluid process with the public's engagement and involvement. That's something that the board has to take on, and then we as a board, in conjunction with the superintendent, can make a recommendation that we all agree on where we think what this body looks like. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves of where it lies. We still have to have that conversation amongst each other and with Dr. Good.
But to be clear, I didn't say we are taking it on. Yeah, to be clear, I did not say we were taking it on. He said to speak to your suggestion. What I said, that the work in innovation and reform will focus on components of the FMP as well as directed in our charter. There is enough work for FMP to go around, and I hope that this board does avail itself of the opportunity to have a quality and constructive conversation during our board retreat that it can and it will have. Being a part of both processes, I don't think it's an either-or discussion. There's so many parts to have. You can have it in multiple places. It won't be monolithic, and it won't be able to be held in one place, because ultimately it is the Columbus Board of Education that must approve whatever plan or process to move forward. So wherever it lives, I hope that the entire board will once again be engaged, and most importantly, make sure our families and our communities are at the forefront, and we keep our students first in the ideas of what will be the best way to implement the existing plan and to continue to discuss the plans as we're moving forward. It is a very fluid document, as we always say, as well as our student body and how it will change over the life of the program. So I look forward to whatever President Baker decides, and in our board discussion at the retreat of how we'll move forward in that. But Innovation and Reform will continue its work and provide support for whatever part of that discussion we deem necessary.
Right, and I think we all agree that it merits further board discussion, and I think the retreat could be a perfect opportunity to further this discussion and come to some consensus around the notion of continuation, which is critically important. All right, very good. Mr. Superintendent, have you anything else you'd like to share with the board this evening?
I thank you for that. So the retreat will really be where we get our next direction on that.
Thank you.
That's good.
Yes, sir, thank you. Absolutely. All right, Madam Internal Auditor, have you anything to share with the board this evening?
Thank you, President Baker, Vice President Cole, members of the board. At the last Audit and Accountability Committee meeting, one report was approved for release after minor adjustments were made. The report was a follow-up to the attendance reports that had been released starting in 2012. We reviewed 28 open items, and I am happy to report that 19 of the items reviewed have been corrected. The final 9 items that were still deemed to be open will be reviewed at a future date, and an additional report will be issued. That's all I have for the board this evening.
Thank you very much, Madam Internal Auditor. Any questions for the Internal Auditor from board members? Hearing none, thank you very much. Mr. Treasurer, have you a report for the board this evening?
Thank you, President Baker. Just a quick comment. The somewhat newly constituted Finance and Appropriations Committee will meet on the 16th. Board Member Cole is going off the committee. Board Member Brown is joining us. Board Member Peretti is going to be chair, and Board Member Hudson will remain. And we'll meet on the 16th at 4 p.m. in this room. And all are welcome.
Thank you very much for that report. Any questions for the treasurer from board members? Thank you very much, Mr. Treasurer. Appreciate that. All right, and now we have arrived at our consent agenda. So the chair will now entertain a motion that we approve the consent agenda as it has been presented.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All right, what I'd like to do first, if there's no objection, is call on Board Member Reyes to read aloud Resolution 11.1. This is the resolution regarding the board's commitment to ensure that schools are equitable and safe spaces for all students. Board Member Reyes.
Thank you, President Baker. Whereas the Columbus City School Boards of Education, or the board, has adopted as its mission that each student is highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, and empowered for success as a citizen in a global community. And whereas the board has adopted as its first goal that each student reaches the student's full potential to continue education, serve in the military, go to college, start a business, and enter the workforce as a lifelong learner. And whereas the board has adopted as its second goal that the district creates safe, student-centered, innovative learning environments and recruits, develops, and retains world-class talents. And whereas the board believes that ensuring that our schools are safe and welcoming for all students and their families will facilitate the physical safety and emotional well-being of all children in the district and is paramount to students' ability to achieve. And whereas any resident in the state of Ohio who has attained the age of 6 years and is under the age of 22 years is entitled to attend public school in the school district where he or she is a resident. And whereas the United Supreme Court held in Plyler versus Doe in 1982 that public school districts have the obligation to provide a child with access to a free public education, notwithstanding the child's immigration status, because to do otherwise would inflict harm on the child and society itself, and the equal protection rights of the 14th Amendment. And whereas it is the obligation of the Columbus City School District to follow the law as declared by the Supreme Court, and whereas public schools and school districts in Ohio are subject to all federal and state laws and constitutional provisions prohibiting discrimination. And whereas these principles of non-discrimination are set forth in board policies 1422, 1623, 1662, 2260, 2260.01, 3122, 3123, 3262, 4122, 4123, 4362, 5517, and 5517.01. And whereas no otherwise qualified student, employee, applicant for employment, or member of the public shall be excluded for participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to unlawful discrimination under any district program or activity on the basis of race, sex, sexual orientation, religion, color, national origin, age, gender identity or expression, ancestry, familial status, military status, disability, genetic information, or any other legally protected category. And whereas the board recognizes that national events and the current political climate have caused uncertainty and anxiety for many in our communities, and whereas in these times the board recognizes that education can help us bridge our differences and can help bring us together around respect and understanding rather than fear. And whereas it is the goal and the commitment of this district to cultivate a safe and supportive learning environment for all, to embrace and value our diversity, and to act quickly to prevent and address any and all issues of discrimination and harassment in our schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Columbus City School Boards of Education publicly affirms its dedication and commitment to all the students that we serve and to the employees in our district. And be it further resolved that the board will continue to take any and all actions authorized by law and our policies to provide equal opportunities and safe learning spaces for all of our students.
Thank you. The resolution is part of the consent agenda.
Oh,
so
that's
we'll-
right.
Yes, yes, sir. Mr. Brown, have you a question or comment?
I do. Especially given the level of anxiety, and I've heard from a wide variety of people who are very uptight and concerned in our community, both in our school community and our business community. Yeah.
Carry on, Mr. Brown.
Given those concerns and those anxieties that are out there and that are real, dampening the ability of families to get together, to travel, to vacation, I think it's very important that we make a statement that that our schools, to the extent that we can, have to be safe places for all students and their families, and importantly, that they be safe places without regard to immigration status, national origin, or language. I think that it is important that we understand, and that those who are part of our school family understand, that there is no federal affirmative duty to inform or to assist federal immigration authorities. And finally, that it's important for us to recognize that none of us, the schools as a whole, and none of us may deny equal access to school services, to school activities, based upon immigration status, national origin, or language, unless that becomes required by law or court order. I think that this statement that we're making, this resolution, will help bring that to the public's attention, especially that of not only our school employees and our students, and especially their families, and that we're going to recognize the importance of making that statement.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. This, after all, is still America. Any other comments on this particular?
Minor thing, it's just.
Mr. Brown?
Yes. It's just curious in some ways, and particularly timely, that at this very moment that we are considering this, that the president's executive order is, a challenge to it rather, is being heard in the Ninth Circuit as we speak. Oral arguments started about 35 minutes ago and are still underway. And hopefully that too will bring some clarity and some comfort to the folks in our community that we're talking about.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. Yes, Ms. Gibbs.
I think this resolution is important, so I thank you for bringing it on behalf of Columbus City Schools, because this is not where we sit in comfort and complacency, but where you stand in conflict and controversy, and the opportunity to stand up for all of our students. We know we have a district that speaks more than 70 languages, and in any given day you can walk in and say hello or bonjour or namaste or hola, and there will be a number of our students who will respond. And I am also encouraged by the fact we have a global academy. We have an international high school. We have a brand new Afrocentric K-12. We are a district and a community that I think more and more this week have stood up and said, this is not who we are. So I'm glad we lend our voices to that of not just diversity, but of love and inclusiveness, and that I hope our parents and our students understand that all are welcome. And when you see Columbus City Schools, we are a safe place for your students and for your families to be. And it is a proud moment in our history, and in our city when everyone is on the same page saying this is not who we are going to be.
Any other comments or questions on this particular resolution from board members? All right, thank you very much. Are there other questions or comments on other pieces of legislation within the consent agenda this evening? Board members? Mr. Peretti?
I just want to say again, thank you for the car donation from Germain Toyota. It was very nice of them to donate that to us.
Indeed. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Peretti. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, President Baker, Vice President Cole, Board Member Peretti. It's an art donation. It's so that the non-functioning car can be painted. I didn't want anyone to have the impression that they're now outfitting our fleet, so.
It is. It's an art car. It's a learning tool. But thank you. Ms. Gibbs?
I do have a question. That is on 17.3 as we are prepared to consider offering some of our buildings for sale, one of which is one of our K-12 buildings. Dr. Good, can you just tell us, as we're talking about the facilities master plan, and obviously there's still a lot of angst and passion around it, can you talk to us about how we are prepared to provide swing space for the high schools that are yet to be built in our facilities master plan, and how we will support the students on the far east, and south sides that will need locations to swing when we are rebuilding their buildings?
Vice President Cole, members of the board, and Ms. Gibbs, in the facility master plan, and Alex, I'm going to invite you to the podium too, because I think you're more familiar with this more recently than I am, but we do have presently swing spaces identified in the event we should be renovating or reconstructing high schools. So presently, the former Fifth Avenue International School is vacant, and still it's not on the surplus list anymore, as you know. There is a plan to consolidate, a tentative plan based on the ad hoc work to consolidate the Columbus North International population with the Global Academy population. And Brookhaven site could accommodate both of those together, which would avail that Columbus North International site as another swing space. So that one is in the north. As we know, that one was used for, I believe, Linda McKinley at one point, used for East at one point. So the proximity of the swing sites to the neighborhoods where the construction is taking place may not be contiguous, but they haven't been in the past either necessarily. So we know that's somewhat of a consideration when we travel, but those are two sites. And Alex, help me with any others.
Yeah, so certainly many of our high school sites have enough real estate that we would require some reconfiguration, but just to give you an example, at Marion Franklin, there's certainly enough real estate there between, and I apologize, I'm forgetting the name of the middle school that currently has, between Beery and Marion Franklin, there is enough room on that site that we could conceivably build a new building adjacent to what's currently there and reconfigure that site. So we're comfortable.
Without displacing the students from their current high school.
Correct, without displacing the current high school. So we're comfortable with the recommendation that there are enough real estate opportunities that we can manage the upcoming FMP work.
So what you're saying is that we have North and we have Brookhaven, but they are squarely in due north, so to speak. And East was downtown, and Linda McKinley was not too far away from North. But when we're talking about Independence, which is far east on Refugee Road, and your Walnut Ridges, which is far east on Livingston, and even Eastmore, because I know they really want a new building, and as all of them do, and your south and your west sides, what space, because we have tried to keep them as close as possible. And every other community has been able to do that because South swung to Buckeye. They didn't have to leave their community, and we're very cautious about that. And at the way our city is set up on 70 East, that can be a nightmare in the mornings. And so do we have any space identified that can accommodate high schools, or is our answer you'll have to go from Refugee Road way over to Clintonville for a swing space?
And South went to Barrett, didn't they? It wasn't Buckeye, was it?
No, I think it was Bear, but it was in the south end.
Yeah, south
It was-
side. I just wanna
They
make sure
stayed
we-
on the south
yeah.
side, north side, Center City stayed, north side, Center City. But we're talking far east, Refugee, past
So-
almost Eastland Mall, so.
President Baker, to Board Member Gibbs' question. So, there are certainly all sorts of ways we can look at the work going forward. I could give you examples of school districts that have done partial swing outs and used modular classrooms that remained on site. Again, we could look at the Independence site. There's a large front yard to that site. We could conceivably rebuild on that existing site without displacing the students. The Walnut Ridge site's a little bit challenging. It's a big site, but a lot of it's in the floodplain, so that one might be a little bit more of a challenge. But like I said, certainly with the real estate we have available at Briggs on the west side and Independence on the east side, again, I'm comfortable that we could accommodate new construction on existing sites while we remained at those sites.
To the point of, and I've seen us do it a couple of times, with the recent number of explosions and water pipes blowing up on the west side and plants blowing up on the west side, how safe is it to have our students there while we're working on gas lines, water lines? Before, I wouldn't have thought much about it, but in this last few months, where about 4 things have blown up on the west side, I'm concerned about the safety of our students being on an active building site where, thank God, it hasn't happened, but what about their safety in doing that in heavy-duty construction, air quality and environmental quality of those students being in that close proximity during a construction area, as opposed to swinging out to independent swing space? What is our safety plan, and how are we thinking about that?
So I'm going to respond to that because obviously we haven't addressed that part of the facility master plan. You remember we stopped the ad hoc work after the elementary and middle school reconfigurations were done. We always, let there be no misunderstanding, we have always put the safety of our children as first in this district, and will continue to do so. And we'll certainly conduct the appropriate studies to ensure their safety if we remain in those spaces while we're reconstructing on those similar sites. So I don't know that Alex could be in a position to answer any specific site questions, because that's down the road. We need to pass a bond issue before we even reignite that facility master plan. So, but we're not going to put any children in harm's way. We wouldn't do that. I know you know that.
Yeah, we know that, and so, but the question here is that we are about to sell some real estate that we have previously used, or it could be possibly used for swing space. But to find resolve in my mind, it's if we are going to release swing space that can accommodate high school populations, what do we have to replace it where we could use, and especially for the east and far east and south sides, do we have something? Because we need to pass a bond, but we are absolutely thinking we're going to pass it. We're going to pass the next one. We are going to finish our bond program because every student deserves to be in a 21st century building. So it may not be in the next 4, it may be in the next 10, but in the next 10, will we have the capacity and the real estate to swing our students somewhere so we can finish the program? And have we identified some alternate space?
President Baker, to Board Member Gibbs, in short, I would say the answer to that question is yes. We're comfortable with the recommendation that's been brought forward, that we do have a way to execute on the facility master plan.
With enough capacity for swing space where the east side doesn't have to go, the far east quadrant will have some space close in their neighborhood where they don't have to go past downtown. No? Nothing identified? Okay, thank you.
Board Member Hudson, you were next.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Baker.
Yes, ma'am.
I did note in the news this week that there was a meteor strike in Iowa. Wondering if we could, I think we have, my point being, we have vetted this, I think, these facilities being on the surplus list. This board has vetted it. It's been a very thorough community vetting. I think we've had great professionals looking at these issues, our in-house professionals and otherwise. I want to thank the staff for meeting with me just 2 weeks ago to go over the entire process just one more time, and also going through it in terms of the objective bidding process, the objective appraisal process, what we need to do to get this done. One other element to this, and I think it's very important that we note, is we waited to set the bond and levy package until after FMP was completed, so that we could identify what was on the surplus list, taking those numbers to then calibrate what amount we would request as a bond amount, and then look at that to estimate what else we could achieve in property sales to address additional deferred maintenance. We've punted a lot of maintenance for a long time, and we really need to address it. This will fulfill those commitments we made during through the levy millage process and the bond and levy campaign. And so I respectfully request, I think we consider all of that very thorough vetting, and no, I think we have, I think many of those contingencies have been considered through the very thorough process that's occurred over the prior months.
Thank you, Board Member Hudson. Other board members on this? Yes, Mr. Vice President.
Yes, I would really like to close with this thought as we continue to move on, approval of this consent agenda, that we are in a space of creative tension. And creative tension is rightfully defined as identifying where we are and the gap that is between where we want to be. All of us have valid arguments and valid comments. It's really important that as we move forward in this process, that we maintain some civility, that we maintain some respect, that we understand that despite we might get frustrated at times and annoyed by this process and by this contraction and expansion of tension, that we just keep that in mind, that we're first and foremost on the right track. We did the due diligence of ensuring that we understand and are in fidelity with what we committed to the community that we were going to do. As Board Member Hudson said, we identified the best purposes and reasons for asking the community for resources, be it via their tax valuation on their homes. We created a situation where we said we can offset some of those costs with property sales. We've identified some areas and opportunities for student transition. We've done the due diligence up front. We still have the conversation. We've committed today as a board that we will move forward with future conversation regularly as expectation to identify and have conversation around the high school transition and what we want to do with that. So at the end of the day, let's understand as we close out on this conversation that we're on the right track, we're doing the right work. This is just a creative tension moment. Board colleagues, let's move forward with our good work. Let's not get to a point where this becomes unnecessarily cantankerous or lacks civility.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And are there any other comments on this particular piece of legislation before we move on? Ms. Board Member Gibbs.
Yes, I do. I can't let it be said. I understand that there are things that have happened, but in respect and honor of the people on the west side, there may be meteor showers, but the explosion of a meat plant with rotting meat blowing for weeks is real. The water alerts that we get every week are real. The explosion on Hague of the water line is real. So environmental hazards, whether they're our own or someone else's, are very real, and they impact our buildings. They cause us to evacuate some of our students at times, and they are not, I don't want the community to believe I take any of them lightly wherever they are, in that there are times, and I appreciate your comments, Vice President Cole, but you should understand how important a matter is by the amount of time we have, Board Member Hudson, taken to deliberate it. We want to make the absolute best decision, not for just now, but for the thousands of students who will be here when none of us will be here when they're continuing this master plan. So I appreciate all the dialogue, all the due diligence of our team that have answered all the questions that needed to be answered, because we have to talk to, we have to answer to every single student and every single family, every single taxpayer, and every single stakeholder in this community as to why we made these decisions. We've bought property only to sell it 3 years later. We've bought stuff and ended up it didn't work. So we need to make sure we are the best stewards of not just the financial part, but of the parents and the students who have to live with these decisions, the parents that will have to drive from Independence to North to come to a play or wherever the swing space is, the traffic patterns, what it's going to take to wait for your child to come home. None of this deliberations, I don't feel, are in vain, and they are our responsibility, even if it's ad nauseum, so we can walk away and say we believe we've advocated the best for all students and everyone that will be impacted.
And Mr. Superintendent, if you'd like to.
Yeah, only as a point of clarification, so that people that live on the west side don't feel like they're targeted in the infrastructure of the city. And with respect to, I mean, most of our water outages in the past couple of weeks have actually been on the north side of the city, not on the west side. So it's, no one's immune to those sorts of utility failures. I just wanted to clarify. So.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And I think to Board Member Gibbs' point, the fact that we did go through such a thorough process and had so many voices involved and did take the amount of time that we took, I think it brought us to the very best decision. And so if there's nothing else on that particular piece of legislation, any other items, Ms. Gibbs?
On item 15.2, I'm very glad that we are supporting the International Baccalaureate program at the Columbus Alternative High School. And for those students who continue to achieve at the highest level, I am glad that we are continuing to support that program, and it continues to be a Flagstaff program in our district and a highly sought after accreditation for a lot of our students. So kudos for those who've been able to maintain that program.
Very good, thank you. And any other questions or comments on any other piece of legislation within the consent agenda this evening? Hearing and seeing none. Mr. Treasurer, are you prepared?
Set.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes, I have to abstain on 15.3, and I vote no on Mohawk.
15.3 abstain, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch the no
Oh,
vote.
and I vote no on Mohawk on 17.3.
17.3.
On Mohawk. Abstain from 15.3, and I vote no on 17.3 on the Mohawk.
Ms. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Peretti?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes, except I vote no on 15.3.
President Baker?
Yes.
And that motion carried.
Thank you very much, Mr. Treasurer. So now let's move into our announcements. And so I'd like to start. I will share with each of you a report that was prepared subsequent to my attendance at the 2017 National School Board Association Federal Relations Network Advocacy Institute in Washington at the end of last month. You also received this report via email, and I think we may have a picture or two to show on this. So I'll just briefly read through the report. So Board Policy 0175.1 not only encourages attendance of board members at local, statewide, and national workshops and conferences, it also calls upon us then to provide a report when we return, and so this is that report. So the Advocacy Institute was held in Washington at the end of January. It's an annual event hosted by NSBA, the National School Board Association. The particular picture you see there is the Ohio delegation that attended FRN this year in front of the Capitol building, as you can see. So NSBA is the leading advocate for public education and supports equity and excellence in public education through the school board leadership. NSBA represents state school board associations and there are more than 90,000 local school board members throughout the country. And about 750 of those school board members from across the country met at the Institute. I joined about 50 other school board members from Ohio. We were accompanied and supported by staff from the Ohio School Boards Association. We were briefed in general sessions at the Institute on NSBA priorities for the 115th Congress, including the Child Nutrition Act, the Career and Technical Education Act, federal education investments, and how Congress can best support America's public schools. The entire delegation heard from members of Congress, including a number of representatives, Virginia Foxx, Bobby Scott, Tim Walberg. Senator Lamar Alexander also addressed us, as did Senator Patty Murray, Senator John Tester, and others. The Ohio delegation then did have the opportunity to meet for breakfast with Ohio Senators Brown and Portman. We pressed our case with them as well. After that breakfast, each school board member was able to meet with his or her respective member of Congress to discuss not only the NSBA priorities, but also those priorities for each particular school district that they were representing. And so I did meet with Congresswoman Beatty. That was the other picture that you saw. And obviously has been an outstanding advocate of public education for many years and continues to do that. So she's not a member of Congress that needs to be convinced. She needs to support us. She is a member of Congress with whom we discuss strategy on how best to carry out our priorities in this particular Congress. So I'm very grateful to her. I'm grateful to the board for supporting my participation and attendance, and that concludes my report. Item 2, if you will indulge me again. So, and I think we may have a picture on this one as well. So, February is Career Tech Month, as I was advised, and so I had the opportunity to visit with that's us, at the Sheet Metal Workers International Training Center today, and so that's Jeff Rush and Rob Gartner, and so I got to tour their facility, which includes training. Some of our students are involved in the pre-apprenticeship program there. Some of our graduates are then involved in the 4-year apprenticeship program there. And so those students who are in the pre-apprentice program have the opportunity to work during their junior and senior year. And they also then, after graduating from high school, can work in that field during the 4-year apprenticeship program. And so these two gentlemen did want me to specifically thank our superintendent for a video that he made for them recently. They also, well, I don't think we have it, but yeah, you look great in it, by the way. They also wanted me to thank Board Member Peretti and Vice President Cole for touring the facility as well, and wanted me to extend the invitation to all members of the board to come and visit with them. And are there other announcements? Mr. Vice President.
Just wanted to acknowledge today that myself and a small delegation accompanied by the superintendent traveled to Atlanta, Georgia today to see the wonderful facility that was built by Junior Achievement. Junior Achievement is a national organization that's located in about 25 to 30 cities throughout the country. What they do, in short, is really provide enrichment opportunity, particularly in our district, we do it for 5th graders. My own children have participated in it. But nationally, they focus on the elementary to middle school students. And what they do in Atlanta particularly, it's a very unique model. They have their own, it was like a convention center. It was big as a convention center, where they have BizTown, and BizTown has real model, real scale businesses that are insurance, that are automotive, that are restaurants. And what they do is, in any one of these modules, give students the opportunity to have a real applied experience in how to either manage or lead one of these small businesses. And they've actually made considerable gains in terms of student engagement and lasting student engagement in the classroom. They've been able to influence teacher perceptions of students. Students get to be seen in a different light by their teachers. Teachers get to say, wow, I didn't know that Johnny was so loquacious. He was so talkative with regards to something along the lines of this business. Wow, Johnny shows some leadership ability that they otherwise might not have seen in the classroom. So at the end of the day, I think it's a phenomenal program that we had the opportunity to see. They focus also on financial literacy, and they give, again, kids a very hardcore, real applied, applicative, kind of opportunity to really understand how to pay bills, really understand how to balance a checkbook. So for so many community residents that come to many of us and share their concerns about, you guys don't do the basic stuff anymore. Well, that's not actually true. We actually do provide those opportunities. What we'd like to see in partnership with the labor community and the business community here locally is how do we expand this opportunity the way Atlanta did? How do we maybe even open the doors of opportunities for enriching the academic experience of our high school students and transitioning them into this opportunity and process? So I was at the onset of hearing this, one of the rare times in my life, I really could not see what they were talking about and how this was applicable to our students. Going to Atlanta, actually seeing what this facility looked like, hearing about the curriculum, hearing about how other school districts buy into this, and in a very affordable way, might I add. Learning how the business community and local government have also gotten behind this movement to ensure that young people get some soft skills and some hard skills that carry forward throughout their academic life and onto adulthood, I thought was outstanding. So I hope to see and continue to be a part of the conversations with the business community and others as we move forward with an idea that the business community has called Imagine Columbus. The superintendent can probably talk a little bit more about that, but wonderful trip today, kind of in and out of Atlanta. I want to thank AEP for allowing us the opportunity to travel. They afforded the entire cost of our travel. It was very wonderful of them to do that, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Superintendent, did you want to share any additional comments on your visit to Atlanta this morning?
No, thank you, President Baker. I think Vice President Cole covered it. It's truly experiential. It's focused on financial literacy and work readiness and entrepreneurship. And I think the opportunity for our region is exactly as he described, to not only make this an elementary and middle school student experience, but also recognize that there are high school students that have not yet landed on a career pathway. And maybe through one of the technical career pathways, we could provide this opportunity to them, and also to adults who are retooling and maybe or underemployed. And so I think there's great opportunity. There's a synergy, and other districts would be involved, but clearly their primary interest is in supporting Columbus City School students. So I'm very excited about that.
That's great. All right. One thing I did forget to mention when I offered my report earlier was I brought each of you one of these binders of information from the Advocacy Institute, so you have everything that I received there as well. Mr. Brown, I believe you had something you wanted to share?
Just very briefly, I thought it appropriate to note with displeasure and disappointment the confirmation this morning of Betsy DeVos as Education Secretary. She was sworn in about an hour ago, and I think that because she is not and has not been throughout her career a supporter of public education, strong public education, I think that's simply going to make our task more difficult. We don't know the ways in which it may affect us, but I don't foresee that being a positive, helpful thing for any of us.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I think that's probably one point that we probably have unanimity on here at the table, so we probably don't need to belabor the point, but yes, we are ready, and we will continue and do the best for our students and families and employees and community partners. Yes, Mr. Peretti.
So again, to reiterate what Stan said, Finance is meeting next Thursday at 4 o'clock, and I have some really big shoes to fill with Mary Jo Hudson, so I am looking forward to this transition, but it is such a good process that we've been able to develop. I am really humbled that I get to be a part of this process that is historical in nature for school boards in the state of Ohio. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm very nervous about it because Mary Jo Hudson's very, very smart. So I'll look for everyone's help, and I'll see you next Thursday for Finance Fun.
Very good. Thank you. Board Member Hudson is about to tell you how not to mess it up. Board Member Hudson?
My feet aren't that big. I would like to, we went through the internal auditor's report quickly, and, but I did want to acknowledge, at our last meeting, the report is up online, and it's a follow-up on the student data issues, and you know, a good follow-up, but I want to acknowledge both the internal audit team and also Dr. Klein and her team, because what that report was was an acknowledgement of hard work, what hard work and collaboration can achieve. And I think that everyone is pleased that we've not only achieved remediation, but we have developed a whole new central attendance office structure that is highly accountable, and identified other tools we need, other things we need to do, and certainly it's there's looking ahead for additional improvement and additional growth, and I'd call it growth more than improvement. But the collaboration among the two was just fantastic, and I think it was for board members, remember, internal audit is our eyes and ears, and that report is part of helping us see what's going on in the district. It's worth a read. And I encourage you all to take a look, and I want to thank everyone who's been involved in that very, very onerous process. It's been a very deep dive, and a lot of work has gone into it by both teams. So I want to thank everyone who was involved.
Very good. Thank you. I couldn't agree more. Ms. Gibbs.
Sure, yeah. Thank you. I would like to announce that next Wednesday, February 15th, will be the next meeting of said Innovation and Reform Committee. The committee meets at 6 p.m. from 6 to about 7:30. The meeting is open to the public, and we will send information out. Just check the website, or it'll come out via email.
Very good. And if all hearts and minds are otherwise clear, Director Johnson.
Thank you. Is it on? Yes. Okay. President Baker, members of the board, I'd just like to announce that Mayor Ginther will be delivering his State of the City address on Thursday, February the 23rd at 6 o'clock. The event will be held at the Columbus Police Academy, located at 1000 North Hague Avenue.
Good. Thank you. We'll see you there. Mr. Superintendent, did you have anything else you wanted to share?
No, maudlin as it may sound, I want to appreciate the board I know this was an ambitious agenda tonight, and there was a lot of deliberation. I appreciate the input, appreciate the engagement, and appreciate the outcome. So,
thank you, sir. Yes, it was a great meeting, and having said that, I will call on the Vice President to offer a motion.
Mr. President, it is recommended that the Board of Education recess into executive session per Section 121.22 Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment or compensation of public employees.
Second. And seconded. Hearing no discussion. Mr. Treasurer?
Vice President Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Gibbs?
Yes.
Ms. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Peretti?
Yes.
Ms. Reyes?
Yes.
President Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Did I call you twice?
Yes.
That motion really passed.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. The board will now recess into executive session.
Well, wait a minute. Do you want my vote?
Oh, you didn't call him at all?
I didn't call Mr. Brown? Okay, Mr. Brown?
Sure.
All right. The board will now recess into executive session. Thank you.